College campuses are hotbeds for protests. That's not new. Just ask the baby boomers. It was 54 years ago. Demonstrators from around the country were protesting the Vietnam War. Sit-ins, disruptions, even violence. 4 people killed after a battle with college students at Kent State University and the National Guard. This week, chaos outside classrooms from Austin, Texas to New York to the University of Michigan.
We're not moving, so come talk with us. Let's talk meaningfully about divestment.
The pro-Palestinian protesters, in a throwback to the 1960s, say college campuses are the perfect place to do this. But some of them aren't even college kids. They're men and women who are camping out with students. Tonight, an Arab-American mayor from Metro Detroit, a Jewish lawmaker, and a professor chime in. Higher tensions meeting higher education, leaving some students saying they don't feel safe. A tough lesson that students need to just deal with, or an unsafe environment for them to be a part of. You decide. Let It Rip starts now. Joining us now to take on this topic, Dearborn Mayor Abdullah Hammoud, Democratic State Representative Noah Arbit, and Oakland University College of Arts and Sciences Dean Elaine Carey. And it's good to see all of you. So to kind of set the stage for us, we have obviously someone with an Arab-American perspective, also from the Jewish perspective, and from the professorial perspective, a dean who can talk a little bit about the, these protests. This is not our first rodeo of any kind when it comes to protests, but here we are. And right now we can say more than 20 people arrested at the University of Texas in Austin. According to authorities, the governor there saying the arrests are pro-Palestinian protesters, and that governor is vowing to continue the arrest until the crowd disperses. Mayor Hammoud, when you hear someone saying that down south, a few hundred miles away, what goes through your mind?
I find it strange at this moment in time when you have over 35,000 people who have been absolutely massacred in Gaza, 15,000 of which are children, that we're concerning ourselves with 19-year-olds who are peacefully protesting at university campuses across the country. I think this is an infringement on their freedom of speech. And they have been the first to come out and say anybody who's trying to be a bad faith actor, they're shunning, saying this has nothing to do with our protest that's happening here on campus. But again, they're trying to focus on the genocide that's unfolding and protesting this idea that our country keeps sending billions of dollars and manufacturing arms and weaponry to Benjamin Netanyahu in the most right-wing government in Israel history to continue slaughtering innocent families across the world.
We're going to have to take a separation of the issue itself and the protests as being two separate things here. And I'm going to do that for a moment and ask Representative Arbit. I saw you shaking your head when you heard the good mayor here saying, hey, these are peaceful protests in which people are not being, stopped from carrying on with their day. Would you disagree with that?
I certainly would disagree with that. The amount of vile anti-Semitism that has been part and parcel with these protests, and it's not just a few bad actors, it is wide swaths of these protests. I mean, we have long lived the Intifada in Ann Arbor at University of Michigan on the Diag. That is a direct call for bloodshed against Jews. That is a direct hearkening back to the Intifada, the first Intifada, the second Intifada, which was mass uprisings in the state of Israel, Palestinian uprisings, which led to thousands of people being killed. And so, and you also have, there's so many different examples. Anti-Semitic graffiti, you have different, I forget what university it was, that you had a professor actually ask Jewish students to sort of go to the side and say that's exactly what Israel is doing to the Palestinians.
So you have at Columbia University, House Speaker Mike Johnson called on the school president to resign and step down. Is that going too far, Noah?
I think a lot of these college campuses have become ungovernable. And the fact is, I can't speak to what the bylaws are, what the rules and regulations are of the individual campuses, but it is such dereliction of duty, such a forfeiture of leadership, that the fact that Columbia University, instead of protecting its Jewish and Arab students, has decided to close down and go all virtual to Zoom. The fact is, across this country, you have had all of these protesters. Jewish students are harassed, they are intimidated, they're in many cases, there have been violent assaults.
Isn't that the reason, Representative, to go hybrid, is to protect the very people you're talking about?
Can I actually comment on this?
I think that the school has a duty to protect its students, and if it hasn't been able to do that, and instead it's hiving off its programming, collapsing its programming to the lowest common denominator.
Do you think, Mayor Hammoud, do you think that the hybrid programming is helping protect both Arab American and Jewish students from any harm that they may be feeling?
If it was a peaceful protest, they wouldn't have had to go virtual.
I think firstly what I'd say is I find it strange that my Democratic colleague finds similarities with his viewpoints with the Speaker Mike Johnson of our House at this point in time. I think that tells you all you need to know about where his position is on this point in time, as well as the fact that he has yet to call for a ceasefire or even to condemn the killing of a single innocent Palestinian across all of Gaza.
When have you condemned the anti-Semitic protests in Ann Arbor, all college campuses across the country? You haven't condemned anything. You haven't condemned October 7th.
What I would tell you about the protests is that many of the students who are part of these protests are Jewish students, in fact. Jewish Voices for Peace are at the center of many of these protests across college campuses, and they're speaking up for themselves. There are two things that can happen simultaneously.
Don't tokenize Jews.
There is the ability for you to come forward and say we condemn all anti-Semitic rhetoric as well as Islamophobic rhetoric or anti-Arab rhetoric. At the same time, the ability to uplift student protests who are protesting peacefully, calling for the end of the support of a genocide that is unfolding. And so I think those two things can happen in congruent and happen in parallel. This idea that it's a binary choice wants to end in totality the debate, because there is a fear that right now the people are waking up across the globe to what's unfolding in Palestine, this unfolding genocide where 35,000 people have been killed, 100% of the people have been displaced, and over 80% of all civilian infrastructure has been decimated by the IDF.
Okay, Mayor and Representative, I want to bring into the fold here our Dean to talk a little bit about some context here. Encampments. I wanted to talk to you about that in particular. These aren't just protests. These are encampments. How often do we see these encampments? And when you look at it from a historical perspective, what is the end game of these encampments?
So encampments are fairly new and something that has happened in this century, but before there would be occupation and taking of buildings. And that happened at Columbia as well as other universities across the United States. It was also very common globally in the 1960s. And some of those actions were to oppose the Vietnam War, as well as to impose the university research that would be used by the military or the defense industry. So kind of what we start to see now as a divestment, and that movement really does have its roots in the 1960s.
When we look at fast forwarding now, all of these years later, looking at this encampment that we're seeing, for instance, at the University of Michigan, and then you see the signs, and you heard Representative Arbit talking about some of the signs that are anti-Semitic. There have been many Islamophobic signs that have been placed on campuses as well, we should point out, across the country since October 7th. Where's the line from a Democratic point of view, but also from a school university point of view of what is hate speech and what is free speech?
So I think one of the things that's really important for us to remember is that we're looking at a number of encampments, less than 20. That could potentially grow, but there are 2,800 colleges and universities that are four-year degree granting institutions. So we're looking at a fraction of a percentage. The role of the university is to provide a safe space for an education, and also to ensure that they're supporting their values, the institution's values and its mission.
But how do you draw that line, though, between free speech and hate, and when does it become hate speech, and according to who, right? Isn't that the important question?
That's a delicate balance. Yeah. It's not an easy decision. And so part of what that means, and I think what's really important, is that university leadership needs to remain in communication with the leadership of the protest or the students. And the leadership is fairly flat. In student protests, it's not hierarchical, but it's very important to maintain a communication line, as you would with any type of crisis communication.
And so, Mayor, when you see people who, we interviewed several Jewish students who are trying to enter the diag, cross it to go into their different buildings and classes or dorms, and they said, you know, some of them told us, I don't feel safe. At what point do you think it's acceptable, the protests, and how far does that get pushed until someone says, you know what, this is kind of threatening or this is harassment?
Yeah, I think ultimately you want to ensure that the protests are always peaceful and that any rhetoric that is vile, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, anti-Arab is absolutely condemned. And you're seeing this happening from the peaceful protesters themselves at college campuses across the country. In fact, you even saw at Columbia that the university professors all came forward, many of them did, large numbers did, in support of the protesters who were protesting over at Columbia, and over 50 law professors at Columbia University opting a letter to the president of the university suggesting that the police coming in and arresting many of these protesters is actually infringing on their rights. So there's a very delicate balance that you have to maintain at these college campuses, ensuring people are safe whenever they're walking across campus. Now, we also have to be clear that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism, right? Conflating the two. That if you're
anti-Zionist, laboratory conditions. Only in laboratory conditions.
Not at all.
It is theoretically possible to be anti-Zionist without being anti-Semitic. Theoretically.
It's not theoretically.
Unfortunately, that's never how it works.
Absolutely. This is mind-blowing, because if my colleague here would have criticized Saudi Arabia or MBS for killing an American journalist, nobody would say that he's Islamophobic. Similarly, if protesters are criticizing...
But calling for the end of Saudi Arabia, calling for the end of every Arab or Muslim country, which the only Jewish country...
I'm going to let you finish in a minute.
You are so insecure in your position.
I am not insecure.
You have this fear that you are wholeheartedly complicit.
Because you're telling us to go back to Poland, and the only Jews that are in Poland are those in mass graves. That is what the protesters have said. Protesters have said that to Jewish students.
You know what is un-American? You know what is un-American? Casting with a wide brush an entirety.
That's exactly what you're doing.
Because one individual might come in and cast some statement that is condemned by many and all. You know who else does that? You know who's an expert at doing this, where my colleague takes his talking points from? He takes it from Donald Trump. Donald Trump is somebody who casts these types of negative rhetoric to migrant communities, to black communities, to Muslim communities, to Jewish communities. That's who does this. And this idea that Democratic state reps are now taking their notes from Donald Trump and the right-wing Republican Party, or Benjamin Netanyahu and the most right-wing government in Israel history, is very sad to see.
And the representative, I want to get the dean in here one more time, because I want to ask about these extra players that are coming in from outside the university. How common is that? We see right now at the University of Michigan, and we have some people that we know who are reporting on this and doing some deep reporting. Many of those people in those camps, I don't want to say many, I don't want to quantify it, but some of those people are not even students, and they're being called, planted antagonists. Is that common to see in protests?
Yes, you do sometimes see that. And there was a really great statement that was issued by department chairs today at Columbia University, which are talking about that. So it is important for the universities to respond, and recognizing that there are provocateurs or agitators that might come onto campus. And part of that, their goal is to escalate, and to escalate any kind of conflict that they are hoping to make it bring it to a different level.
Those antagonists shouldn't have a place in any of these protests, should they?
Absolutely not. I think they should be called out. I think they should be investigated. And I think they should be held accountable for their rhetoric.
Representative, do you agree with that?
I do agree, and I want to give a great example. After the Wall Street Journal posted a very inflammatory statement about the mayor's city, I came out as a Jewish American state representative, Democratic state representative, and condemned the Islamophobic, anti-Arab sentiment that inflammatory Wall Street Journal posted. I think that we would have less of a problem if leaders like the mayor here would condemn the most vile anti-Semitic tenor and tone of these protests that are occurring not just on college campuses, but in places like Dearborn.
Representative, he did say a few moments ago, and I know you were
but he hasn't
back
this whole
and forth.
Time.
I know.
That's the problem.
And
leaders like him haven't done that.
This takes me back to 9/11, when they're now asking me to condemn everything that everybody who looks like me or might have a name like me.
I'm asking you to stick to your principles of what you have just said.
I have condemned very clearly anybody who has any vile rhetoric. I've also condemned the killing of all innocent men, women, and children, which you have very clearly not done till this day and time.
Both of you have very strong principles and opinions on this, and it's such an important topic for our very large population of Arab Americans, Jewish Americans, and others, including Hindus and Christians, who live in this community. And I want to say thank you for having a courageous conversation with us. That's not always easy. Thank you for your time today. Dean, thank you for your time as well, for helping sort some of this out for us. The U.S. government has a message for the owners of TikTok. Sell the site or you're banned. It's all because of fears ByteDance could share your data with the Chinese government. We're hearing from the congresswoman who helped co-sponsor the bill and a man who says TikTok helped build his business. Next. Back now on Let It Rip, debating the potential sale or ban of TikTok in the United States. I'm joined now by Congresswoman Haley Stevens, who co-sponsored the bill, and Chunk Nibbles founder Brad Coughlin, a business owner who says TikTok was critical for his business, may have helped kind of grow it and also continue to save it through all these years. So it's good to see both of you. Thanks for joining us here on Let It Rip. I never thought we'd have some person from Chunk Nibbles debating a congressperson about TikTok, but this is the world we live in. I want to start with you, Congresswoman. Why did you decide that this was so important? For those who are sitting there, whose kids use TikTok, they say, why is the government messing with TikTok? What would you tell them?
Well, I'll say this. I've been, for the last year and a half, on the Select Committee on Strategic Competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party. And what I have learned on that committee, what I've seen in open hearings, has been very alarming. And when it pertains to TikTok and Chinese Communist Communist Party ownership of ByteDance and our data, and the way in which the Chinese Communist Party utilizes data in their own country to suppress people, I felt a approach that would incentivize a sale like what we've gotten in this legislation, what the president just signed into law, would keep Americans safe. And frankly, look, this is a platform that many are on. I respect it and understand that. But when our manufacturers, when our small businesses go to China to do business, they're also forced to sell.
Okay, so let's talk about what happens here with this legislation. Joe Biden signed the bill, the president, into law just hours ago, essentially that could ban TikTok if it's not sold within a year. Okay, so the gentleman from TikTok, from ByteDance, says no way in hell I'm selling this thing, so good luck, the United States, which essentially could end up with a ban that could happen after a year. Your thoughts on that, Brett? What would that do to your business?
I mean, I think that it would have a serious impact. I mean, our overall employee count has doubled within the last 60 days. Our business went from really struggling to get going the beginning of this year to now having a record year, and we're 4 months in.
Because of TikTok?
Because of TikTok. It's the power of TikTok. You have 170 million U.S. users using it every month. Over 20%, over 7 million small businesses across the country, of what, the 33 million small businesses in the country, use TikTok.
But at what cost? I mean, what if it costs us our data and our election security and integrity of our information that all of us value so much?
See, I think the real issue is the fact that our data is being shared across platforms all the time. I mean, I'm getting emails every month. Oh, my data was hacked. My information was hacked. My information was stolen. You use a credit card.
So why make it worse? Why have the Chinese government now get a hold of that? Isn't that the worst possible thing to do?
See, but I think it's really what type of data are they getting? Are they getting just basically the cat video, the dancing video, my snacks? I mean, I hope they're seeing my snack videos.
Well, maybe you'll get a huge market in China for chunk nibbles. You never know. But Congresswoman, there are people who are saying, wait a minute here, what interest do the Chinese people and the government have in getting dance videos and chunk nibbles videos?
Well, I would like to applaud my fellow panelist here, because American ingenuity and entrepreneurship, starting your business in 2018, seeing your way through a pandemic, growing your workforce, as you just mentioned, you have done. That doesn't happen under the Chinese Communist Party. They don't have that level of entrepreneurship. You're either in the elite party or you're not. They disappear people. They are suppressing folks in the northwestern part of their country, primarily a Muslim population, using the same surveillance data that we're concerned about with what's going on with TikTok. And so really, I don't want to put you in the middle of this at all. It's hard enough to be a small business. I mean, I want to look at giving small businesses grants to go into stores and fill our downtowns and things like that.
What happens with the dance videos, the cat videos, and the chunk nibbles videos that would make someone disappear in America because the Chinese government got their hands on the data?
Great question. That's not going to happen to individual Americans. But what we need to do is level the playing field here. We have an enormous trade deficit with China. We have a lot of manufacturers, small businesses. I spend a lot of time with them, and they're selling and developing and manufacturing in China, but it's not with the same reciprocity here in this country. Take autonomous vehicle technology, for instance. We can't test autonomous vehicle technology in China, but they're testing it up and down the West Coast here. So I want to level that playing field. I don't want to see you get caught in the middle. I have full faith that, again, American ingenuity and entrepreneurship with this big company is going to win the day, and that you will continue to be creative and flourish.
Congresswoman, you can't win the day if all of your eggs are in the TikTok basket, and like people like Brad and others like him, like Ashley Gold, who has a jewelry company, who I spoke with on the phone, so many people who are part of your constituency who are saying, no, Congresswoman Stevens, we already compromised our data with Meta, with Facebook, with Instagram, and God knows what else. Give me the right to make that decision myself. If I'm afraid of the risk of my chunk nibbles site going somewhere to China, let me handle that. Why does the government have to get involved? What do you tell them?
Well, I would say this. Look, we realize that the CCP is somewhat adversarial towards the United States of America, and that it is not fair when data across the board is being exploited, and I want to see that get addressed. I also want to see reciprocity here. And frankly, folks who send me to Congress alongside my colleagues, you know, an overwhelming vote, alongside Joe Biden, who has a real vision for this country and for American leadership abroad, there is a level of trust. There is top secret information. There are briefings that we've had that aren't public. And frankly, it is up to us to keep people safe. I'm not here to play games. I'm the daughter of small business owners. I'm the daughter of someone who worked in social media. So I want to see this work for folks. I don't want to see small businesses get caught up in the middle. That's why when we see TikTok get sold, which I believe it will, you already see the race began.
Though. $290 billion bucks. That's a lot of money. Who's going to come grabbing for it? But I wanted to ask you this, though, Brad. We already saw Mark Zuckerberg on the stand testifying in the House. We know that it's not just the CCP we should be worried about. It's all social media. That being said, isn't the risk there no matter what?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's already, the proof's been in the pudding. You know, the last time we were on, David Dergiotis was talking about that same thing. There's been countless times where data has been compromised, whether it's for election manipulation with the Cambridge Analytica
American companies, though, too, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's happening every day. I mean, cyber security and everything is obviously such a growing concern in this country. But really what it comes down to is also what personally myself as a small business owner, I'm worried about the algorithm and everything else changing because there is such an availability for organic growth where I don't have to have $20,000, $50,000 to pump into Mark Zuckerberg's social media machine and hopefully see a little bit of a return in results.
So we know, because I just want to do a little timeline here so no one gets freaks out. So basically this law signed by President Biden, ByteDance has 9 months to a year to essentially find a new buyer. And at that point, if they don't, within a year, we could see a ban. And that is the worst case scenario. Congresswoman Stevens, I never thought that I would say Donald J. Trump and Haley Stevens in the same sentence in agreement here. But Donald Trump tried to force the sale of the ban in 2020, but federal judges blocked the effort because it basically had the effect of shutting down a platform for expressive activity. You're going to face the same thing moving forward, wouldn't you? And maybe you and Donald Trump can talk about it together, right?
Well, I'm certainly not eager to talk to him about anything, especially because he's so busy in his court proceedings right now. But I will say this, that this has been, in many respects, a long time coming. And this is not to exhaust an already tired American public who has gone through so much disruption, so much change. Obviously, parents are very concerned. I talk to parents around Oakland County all the time who are concerned about their kids getting on TikTok. I think Brad just made a great point about logarithms and costs and low-cost efforts. And again, that's a success story here in terms of what he's been able to accomplish. But I'm going to tell you what, our trade deficit, the lack of reciprocity, the currency manipulation, the lack of playing by the rules that exist with China, it is too big of a risk for us.
I'm going to have you say it on the record. Did Donald Trump get it right with TikTok?
I don't think he did because he often doesn't know what he's talking about.
But he did with TikTok, maybe? Would he try to push for it?
I missed the point where he endorsed my bill, my friend.
I want to ask you, we only have 30 seconds left. When it comes to a TikTok ban, what happens to chunk nibbles in your business? What do you migrate to? What do you do?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, we will continue to persevere. I mean, we made it through a global pandemic, a supply chain crisis, a recession, and everything else. So, I mean, we're going to continue to fight. I just think that there's obviously benefits from the platform that flow through not only to our employees, but the local community and everything else that obviously will be impacted.
I got to tell you, I have a TikTok account. I'm not on it at all, but I am hooked on the Reels on Facebook and Instagram. So if that's where Chunk Nibbles ends up falling in a couple of years, I'll see you there. In the meantime, we'll see you around town.
And we'll see you in Troy.
Yes, we're a Troy connection here. I'm from there. You represent, and you're also closely tied. Brad, thank you for joining us here today with Chunk Nibbles. Congresswoman Haley Stevens, good to see you as well. We thank our guests, Congresswoman Haley Stevens and Brad, for joining us. Stay with us. Let it rip. Back in 2 minutes. A final thought tonight, Detroit in the spotlight. The NFL draft kicks off in just hours, but a question you may have asked is, whose Detroit are we talking about? You'll hear people who have lived in the D for years that suburbanites calling themselves Detroiters aren't Detroiters. I found that interesting. My in-laws were born and brought up in New Orleans. They left 50 years ago, but they still call themselves New Orleanians. No one in the city calls them out for that. That just isn't a thing there. Why? Because they know that they come back to the city from the burbs on a Saturday night to spend their money on and dinner and a show, and it helps everybody involved. The restaurant, the waiter, the owner, the valet, and yes, the city's tax base. So as we welcome thousands into town and rub shoulders from suburban men and women who tell us they're from Boston, Chicago, and Portland, do we tell them we're from Trenton, Troy, Redford, and Romeo? Maybe it makes more sense to probably call ourselves Detroiters. But one thing, we have to make sure we do that long after the draft stage is taken down. Thanks for joining us tonight.